Hello and welcome to chapter 6 of this series of videos where we build a 2D platforming game in Unity. So for this chapter, we will look at implementing background music and a player following camera. So in the last video, we configured on how we can implement our sprites for our idle animation, running animation, and jumping animation. This episode will continue building the game itself. So for the index for this video, we will first take a quick update on the prototype on what I did off screen. Next, we will just build a player following camera. And lastly, we will implement a background music. So let's head into Unity and I will show you first the update on the current prototype. So right off the bat, you may notice that my sprite has changed. This is mostly due to copyright issues that we may face should we continue the use of Mega Man. So what I've decided to do was look for a free asset on the Unity Asset Store and use it instead for the animations. I will show you the page itself later on, but you don't need to worry about rewriting your animations because I've essentially made everything one-to-one. So most of the triggers, or bull in this case for is grounded and is jumping, remains the same. All that differs is the names of the animations themselves. So you don't necessarily need to worry about changing your sprite compared to mine, but this is just for the sake of uploading this video in case it would be taken down. So I'll just hit play and we'll see if the animations work. Alright, so we're dropped into Unity and as you can see, the running and idle animations are working, as well as the jump, still the same when I hold it or when I give it a light tap. And that's all you need to know for the first major update of this prototype. So here's the page on the Unity Asset Store that I've used the sprites for. This one is called Hero Knight. So it's one of the very first results you'll see if you sort by free asset and by popularity. And I highly suggest you to take a look into the free assets in the asset store just for you to get an inspiration on how you want to route your animations or maybe some inspirations on how you want to create them properly. Because from what I've seen, most of the sprites that the Unity Asset Store provides from its creators like to provide already the animations and animator component. This is so that it's just plug and play for you to experiment on and to see how well the animations are done. So again, I highly suggest you experiment with the assets because there are countless possibilities that you can do with the asset store in your hands. So as I mentioned previously, most animations or sprites that you see on the asset store already have animations made for the asset itself. Such as this one in Hero Knight, there are already pre-made animations for running, jumping, even crouching and sliding, and even blocking. So yes, I'll say this again, I highly suggest that you look into the Unity Asset Store and experiment with what you can. So as you may have noticed from the showcase of the prototype update earlier, we have tweaked the camera to follow the player. So here I've implemented one of my scripts that I've saved from my old projects where I also have a player following camera. So this is very vital in 2D platforming games so that players know where they are going in the map. Because you don't want a camera that's very zoomed out where you see the entire stage, let's say, and everything is way too small. With most of 2D platforming games, they have a camera that follows the player, which I've discussed in the first video in the 6 basic components. So this script does that for us, and I will do my best to explain the lines of code that I have implemented for the player follow camera in order for you to understand the functionalities of the C# script itself. So for our private variables, first private vector 3 offset is mainly to represent the offset between the camera and the target object. So with the values that I've set, this makes the camera slightly behind the target along the z-axis. Although it may not necessarily be relevant since in 2D games you're not really using the z-axis. So that's open for editing and maybe make the code much more concise or simpler or whatever. Next is private float smooth time. So smooth time is the private variable for the amount of time taking for the camera to smoothly interpolate to the target position. The higher the value makes it more smoother but slower in the process. The lower the value makes the camera follow the target more responsively. So it's up to you on the value that you want for smooth time, but I found that 0.15f is towards my liking. So again, it's mostly up to you on how you want the smooth time value to be. And lastly, for vector 3 velocity, this is just to smooth the damping calculation and is just also used to initialize vector 3.0. Next, we have a serialized field. This is so that you can place what you want to track. So this is where we'll put the transform component of our player. Then we head to the update function. So in the update method, the vector 3 target position line calculates the target position where the camera should move towards and adds the offset vector to the target position in order to maintain the offset between the camera and the target. And lastly, the transform position line is used to smoothly interpolate the camera's current position. And the velocity parameter is passed by reference, that's why it says ref velocity, in order to retain state across frames, and smooth time determines the smoothness of the movement. Alright, so we're now back in Unity and I'll show you where the camera is placed. So just head to main camera and you can see the target serialized field for the player. And all you have to do is head to player and get the transform component. And you're just going to have to select that into the serialized field. And you're good to go. And for the last part in this video, we'll just implement background music to our game. So again, I'll just head to the Unity Asset Store and I found this adventure music and sound effects pack. And again, it's free of use, so always take note that it's very important to try and explore the Unity Asset Store. Maybe you want to kickstart your game. But for the purpose of this video and to keep everything copyright free, we'll just get this asset from the Unity Asset Store for our background music. So now I'll head back to Unity right here and I've found the loops folder so that when the track ends it can just endlessly loop, although there's a specific setting for that, but this one already has it specifically made for it to be looped. So all you have to do is create an empty game object called background music or whatever, and now let's add a component which is audio source, and drag your track and place it there. Alright, and click loop there on the checkbox, and you have a bunch of options in order for you to edit the sound you want, a lot of advanced, but we're just going to stick to volume because that's going to matter. You don't want it to be too loud or too low, so let me just experiment with the value here. That might be okay. We're just gonna have to hit play and see what will happen. Alright, it seems that it's a bit too loud, so we're gonna have to see. That may be okay. We're just gonna have to experiment later on, but at least we know that it's now working. So yeah, I'll just fix the value right here. I'll just further lower it down should it be too loud. Alright, so we finished the index for this video, and that concludes chapter 6. Chapter 7 will now look at building the game environment, so we will start with building the player platforms, and maybe let's try to implement some enemies. So then again, this is it for chapter 6. Thank you for watching, and I will see you for chapter 7. Thank you for watching.